made it. The final week of region play is here, and we've got some huge matchups to talk about this Friday night and get you ready for. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Alec Etheridge, managing editor here at the Shelby County Reporter. This is the Shelby County High School football show, and it's the final week of region play. Obviously, the one everybody's going to be talking about, our game of the week. Number 1 Thompson traveling to the Hoover Met to take on the number 2 Hoover Buccaneers. Two teams sitting at 9-0 on the season, battling for a region championship. And the big question going into the game, is there a team that can take down Thompson this year? And if so, is it the Hoover Buccaneers? So a lot to touch on in that matchup. We will get to that. It's going to be a big loaded show full of talking about the Thompson-Hoover football game this Friday night, a big rivalry matchup now between those two schools as you look at the statistics there just between those two the last several years. So we're going to talk about that game plenty, but you look at where we're sitting as far as the county as a whole and the situation that we could end up in at the end of Friday night. We're looking at right now we've already got 7 teams in the playoffs as we sit here on Monday morning ahead of the final week of region play. You look at those 7 teams, Thompson and Oak Mountain out of Class 7A, and then all of our 6A teams headed to the postseason. Calera clinched last Friday night, so we are in great shape there. We've got all 5 teams, Helena, Chelsea, Briarwood, Calera, and Pelham, all going to the postseason. So that's 7 teams right there. But you look at what we have on Friday night, a chance for Montevallo, Vincent, and Shelby County to join those 7. We could have 10 teams make the playoffs this year. Just a remarkable situation, and I think there's a great shot of that happening. Vincent's probably got the toughest game of those 3, so we'll at least see 2, but the Yellow Jackets a strong chance as well to pick up a win. So we've got a loaded night ahead this Friday, a lot on the line for a lot of teams. If it's not a playoff spot, it's seeding, so we're going to talk all about that in this week's show. Obviously get you geared up for that big battle out at the Hoover Met for the region championship, and it feels like a football week. You can feel it in the air that there is a big game coming up this Friday night, several big games coming up as we sit here on a brisk Monday morning in the mid-40s. It is football weather. It's the end of the season as we inch near Halloween, inch near November. This is the time of year that matters, counts, and is exciting. I'm looking forward to Friday night, and I know all of you are. So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about all of those games. And then, of course, at the end of the show, our SCR Stars of the Week from last Friday night as we name some of the best talent that we saw on the football field. But we're going to dive straight in, and we're going to talk about that huge matchup out at the Hoover Met between number 1 Thompson and number 2 Hoover. Like I said at the top of the show, you can just feel it in the air. It just feels like there's a huge game coming up this Friday, and there is. It's this big showdown. We had Alabama-LSU as the game of the century. Well, this is the game of the century in this state, it feels like, because of these two teams, where they've been the last several years. We know Hoover dominated this state for so long, and now that's switched hands into the hands of the Thompson Warriors, and they've dominated the last several years, coming off back-to-back state championships, looking to make that 3 in a row this year. And you look at what the Warriors have done against the Hoover Buccaneers the last several years, a team that they had not beaten going into the 2017 season. Since then, they've won 6 of the last 7 games and 5 in a row, including 3 in a row in the semifinals of the Class 7A playoffs. Likely that these two teams will meet again in the postseason, but this game is huge for that reason, because the winner of this one going to have home field advantage likely throughout the entire playoffs. But if they do meet again, they would have home field advantage in that matchup. Obviously, the winner gets the region championship, finishes the regular season undefeated, and region play, obviously, undefeated. So a lot on the line going into this matchup. And let me just tell you, this is a business-like feel for the Thompson Warriors. I was out here on Friday night against Oak Mountain, a team I predicted would score 14 points on them. And after that game, I had several people come up to me and give me a hard time about it, always in good fun, obviously, as I make those predictions every week. And, it ends with some fun and some banter there at the end of the night. But they were serious at the same time. This is a team that does not expect to give up points anytime they step on the football field. Now, Oak Mountain did have their chances. They got inside the 5-yard line twice in that game, but couldn't convert any into touchdowns as they had a couple of penalties once they got down to the 1 yard line one time and down to the 4 yard line another time. And if you back up at all, make any mistakes against this Thompson defense, they're going to capitalize. They're not going to give you another inch after that. If they make any mistakes, they rebound in a hurry. They'll force a turnover, which they did against Oak Mountain, or they'll make some big plays to get you out of scoring range. So this is a defense we're going to talk a ton about in this segment. They're angry. You could just feel the tension here. Last Friday against Oak Mountain, they wanted to make a statement, and they came out and they did it. It was a business-like atmosphere, still some fun being had, obviously, when they made their big plays, but you could sense it from the coaches, you could sense it from the players. They were out to make a statement. Head coach Mark Freeman, after the game on Friday, talked about how they had the best week of practice of the season, and that's what's scary. If you had that kind of week of practice going into that game, obviously a big one against an Oak Mountain team that had only lost one game coming into that matchup, think about the week of practice and focus you're going to have this week going into your biggest game of the season against your biggest rival in a top 2 battle. I expect Thompson to be laser focused this week, which is a scary thought because they really haven't had to do that all season, and they haven't probably played their best football yet, which is insane to even think about. And now you get them laser focused up against the toughest opponent on the schedule. You know you're going to get the best out of your team this week, and that's what's so dangerous. Obviously, the Thompson Warriors, we're going to talk a lot about what they can do on the football field, but let's touch on Hoover and what they've been able to do so far this season as well. This is a Hoover team scoring 37.5 points per game, giving up just 12 points per game. So they're playing very good football right now. Obviously, to be undefeated and playing the way that they are right now, you have to be playing some good football. So you've got Bennett Meredith at the quarterback position now. Last year at Spain Park, Meredith came extremely close to pulling off the upset against Thompson, one of the quarterbacks that challenged this defense the most a season ago while playing at Spain Park. Now he's at Hoover, arguably has maybe a little bit more talent over there at Hoover, especially up front on the offensive line. He had some good skill players at Spain Park last year, but now the offensive line, a little bit of an upgrade here at Hoover. You've still got talented athletes all around you on the offensive side of the football, so they're going to be looking to make some plays on the offensive side that allow Meredith to do anything that he can to make some big plays downfield. But they're going to have to find a way to show some balance, establish a run game, because the problem when you face off against this Thompson defense is that you've got a team that if you're one-dimensional, if you're just throwing the football or just running the football, it's not going to happen. They are going to be honed in. They're going to be able to shut that down. So you've got to find a balance. You've got to set that tone early in the football game to show that it's possible, and if you don't, then Thompson's going to tee off. They're going to find a way to shut down whatever you're having success at, and they're going to try to make you force them to do something else, which is going to be very, very difficult against this Thompson defense. But the Hoover defense also playing some good football so far this season. It's a Hoover defense right now, like I said, giving up 12 points per game so far, and they've given up 10 or less in 5 games and 17 or less in all but one game, which they won 28-21 against Oak Mountain. So it's a defense playing well as well. But you look at this Thompson football team and what they've been able to do this season, it's just been absolutely incredible. They've scored 41 or more on the offensive side in every game this season. The defense, we know all about what they've been able to do. 2.9 points per game is all that they're giving up. They've given up just 3 touchdowns combined through their first 8 games of the season. It's just been remarkable to watch the way that this defense has played so far, and expect that to be the case again this week. It's a defense that you look at the 3 touchdowns they've given up. Well, they've had 5 shutouts this season. They've yet to give up double digits in any game so far this season. And the reason why is because of all the great players that they have on that side of the ball. They've got a Division I recruit at every position on the defensive side of the football. And you go beyond that, they've got some that are backups that are already getting Division I offers as well. You look up front, you've got Peter Woods, Jeremiah Alexander. They've been playing on both ends of the line because they know the Thompson defense knows that they can't double team both sides of that line, and it's been a nightmare for opposing offenses to be able to try to block those guys. Now, Alexander can slide back to the linebacker position as well. They don't really need him to right now. He's playing so well up front. You've got those two guys both in the top 10 nationally playing up front on your line. They can shut down the run. They're fast on the edge, and they get into the backfield and pressure the quarterback seemingly every play if you drop back to throw the football. You drop back to the linebacker position, you've got Jax Van Zant, you've got Seth Hampton, both Division I guys. You've got Nate Riddle playing well. You've got some others that can step up there as well on the defensive side in the front seven. So you look at that, if Hoover comes out and tries to establish a run game, it's going to be so difficult to do because of that front seven. They're not just great at getting into the backfield, clustering up the line and the trenches there, but they're also fast on the edges, so you're not going to find a ton of running room in this football game. And what that does is it puts more pressure on Meredith to throw the football, which is also going to be difficult because not only do you have that front seven trying to get after you in the backfield at the quarterback position, but you look beyond that into the secondary, and you've got Division I recruits everywhere out there as well. You look at this Thompson secondary. Tony Mitchell starting to play his best football of the season the last few weeks. He's a top 15 guy nationally. You look at Traquan and Anquan Fagans, two guys that are playing in the secondary as well. Both of those guys, national recruits as well. And then you've got even more. You've got Amon Lane that's stepping back in, playing well here late in the season. Also, this defense just from top to bottom, loaded with talent. I picked them to give up to 14 points last week. Like I said earlier in the show, I can't make that mistake again this week. It's the best high school defense I've seen covering high school football, and it's not even close. And so when you think about that, you think about everything that surrounds this game and how big it is. There may be some jitters and nerves there, but this is a Thompson team. A lot of these guys have played in state championships 2 years in a row. They've been in these big games. They've played Hoover a couple of years now. They're going to be ready. This is going to be another big game for them that they're going to be ready for. So I don't look at those jitters and think that's going to be a huge issue. I think the big thing is you're going to get a team that's hungry, wants to come out and prove just how good they are, and I can't pick them to give up 14 points again after seeing what they did last week and seeing the body of work that they've had so far this season. So you look at that, Hoover's going to have to come out and play strong football on the defensive side to hang around and have any chance in this football game. They want this game to be low scoring, which is going to be difficult because these are two offenses that like to get out there and get after it as well. But you're just not going to score a ton of points if you're Hoover. You have talent. You may put up some points, but you're not going to get a ton, and you don't want to get in a shootout. So you've got to have your defense come out and set the tone and be physical and get after the football in every single play. Basically, give every ounce of effort that you have on that side of the football going into this Friday night. You've got to be ready to roll on the defensive side, and it's going to be difficult. This is a Thompson offense, like we said, scored 41 or more in every game. They're scoring 49.8 points per game. You look at Connor Harrell, off his best performance of the year. Same for Ryan Peppins. You look at Harrell, 6 touchdowns last week against an Oak Mountain defense that was giving up 11.1 points per game, was honestly playing better than what we've seen Hoover do so far this year. You look at that, he's coming off his best performance, 300-plus passing yards. Ryan Peppins, the leading receiver, what he did a week ago, 220-plus receiving yards and 5 touchdown catches. He had 5 receptions, 5 touchdowns, 220-plus yards in that game. That connection's one of the most dangerous in the state, but if you try to shut it down, guess what? Here's Justin Pegues. Here's Jalen Ward. You got the passing game. You've got at least 3 receivers that can make explosive plays, but you've honestly got some more behind that as well. And then if you focus too much on shutting those guys down, well, guess what? Brandon Franklin's going to run down your throat and go for a 40-yard touchdown or more. This is a guy that's been big all year as well. They haven't had to lean on him as much, and they've got more than just him back there as well. They've got about 3 to 4 running backs. They've got 4 that have 200-plus rushing yards so far this season. So you look at that, it's just going to be so tough to come in. You're going to have to, just like I said, Thompson would be laser focused. Hoover's going to have to be even more than that. They're going to have to come into this game, know that they've got to have an edge, basically exhaust themselves on every single play with 100% max effort to have a chance in this football game. Now, this is a good Hoover football team, and they will capitalize. If you let them inside the 5-yard line like you did at Oak Mountain last week, Hoover's going to score. They're not going to make the mistakes like Oak Mountain did in that game. Bennett Meredith, too good of a quarterback. He's going to capitalize and find some room there with his arm, or you're going to have the threat of that, and they're going to find a way into the end zone. So you've got to come out sharp, and that includes special teams. Thompson last week gave up a big kickoff return, had a bad punt at one point, gave Oak Mountain good field position a couple of times there in the first half, which could have made that a different game. So your defense is talented as it is. You can't put them in bad situations. Special teams has to be clicking. You got to win the field position battle early in this game. If Thompson does that early, they set the tone not only with their defense, put up a couple of scores on the offensive side, and I just don't see how Hoover's going to have enough if they fall into that early deficit. If they're losing the field position battle early, I don't see them having enough to be able to come back and win this football game. So we'll see how it unfolds. It's a top two battle. It's number one and number two for a reason. Either team can come out, have an off night, have an on night, so there's no telling what can happen, but you have a good week of practice, you come out focused, and you play your best football. Head-to-head, on paper, Thompson's the better football team this year. So we'll see if they can live up to the hype this Friday night in the biggest game of the season. I am winded talking about that. I had about a page and a half of notes. I don't even know that I looked at them more than once just because of how excited I am to watch this one unfold. Win or lose, it's going to be a great game. Both of these teams, I think, still have a strong chance at a deep playoff run, should meet again in the semifinals. So loser, not going to be out of it by any stretch of the imagination. It's the first of likely two matchups here to determine who will represent Class 7A out of this region in the state championship. So a big, big night this Friday to earn home field advantage throughout the playoffs, most likely. Going to be a lot of fun to watch number one and number two out at the Hoover Met. I'll see you there. Can't wait to see how it unfolds. It's going to be a blast between these two teams. Coming off a difficult 48-0 loss to number one Thompson last week, the Oak Mountain Eagles looking to find anything they can this week, and it's going to be difficult. A heartbreaking loss for them early in that game against the Warriors as a late hit. Injured quarterback Evan Smith, a 4-year starter there for the Eagles. So much of that offense surrounded by what he can do with his legs, extending plays, making big throws, and he was starting to heat up in that game, made two back-to-back huge throws in a row. The drive before that actually got them down to the 1-yard line. A penalty pushed them backwards, and then an interception a couple of plays later as they looked to make something happen on 3rd and goal from about the 10-yard line. Ended up ruining that scoring drive. And then on the next drive, he made two huge throws in a row, got them back down inside the 5-yard line before another flag pushed them back, looking to make a play again. Smith rolled out. He got rid of the ball, threw an interception, then a roughing the passer after that's what did it as he landed hard on his shoulder. And we're unsure of what the injury is still to this point. It's either likely a dislocated shoulder, broken collarbone. We aren't sure. We've heard the rumors, but we haven't heard anything confirmed. He says that he's going to be back. We don't know if that means in an Oak Mountain uniform when he gets to Northwestern and plays college football, but we hope that he's back. We hope we get to see him one more time this season at least wearing an Oak Mountain Eagles football uniform. We don't know if that's going to be Friday night. It seems unlikely going into this matchup. A big, big matchup against Hewitt-Trussville, a game that a couple weeks ago you said a lot of people thought Oak Mountain's got the chance to pull off this win. A huge win for this program is what it would have been too, and now they've got to go into it likely without their starting and star quarterback who can make some big plays. Now, I still think it can be a close game because of the way this Oak Mountain defense has played. Was giving up just 11.1 points per game going into last week's game against Thompson, even after giving up 48 to the Warriors. Still a defense that's giving up just 15.8 points per game. They're playing great football this season, and Hewitt-Trussville's an offense that's playing great so far. They're scoring 37 points per game, but guess what? Against their two best defenses, when they played Hoover and when they played Thompson, they scored 10 and 9, respectively, against those two teams. And honestly, think Oak Mountain's defense is about on the level of what you've seen from Hoover. Hoover may have a few more athletes, maybe a little bit more talented on the defensive side of the ball, but Oak Mountain stayed right with them in a 28-21 loss. I think this Oak Mountain defense can keep this game interesting, especially with Hewitt-Trussville battling some injuries of their own at the quarterback position. So we'll see how that plays into this game. Overall, Hewitt scoring 37 points per game, Oak Mountain scoring about 26.5 points per game. But defensively, you swap that around. You've got Oak Mountain giving up about 8 points per game less than Hewitt-Trussville, with the Eagles giving up 15.8 and Hewitt-Trussville giving up just a little bit more than 23 points per game. So you've got a great defense at Oak Mountain's going to have to come out ready to roll in this game on their home field as they look to pick up a big win. This would get them the 3 seed in region play. Last year with the 4 seed, ended up pulling off an upset in the first round of the playoffs. But this year they want to get that 3 seed, have a slightly easier matchup there in the first round. This is a team in Oak Mountain that's still battle-tested. They still have a lot of hunger and determination. They were within about a half an inch, according to the officials last year, a play where they thought they got a first down in the quarterfinals against Hoover, and arguably bad spot kept them short of the first down. They lose that game in a tight battle against the Buccaneers by 3 points, and now you've got a team in Oak Mountain hungry to get back to that opportunity, a chance to get to the semifinals a year ago. They still think they're a good enough team to do that. We'll see if Evan Smith does return this year for the Eagles. Regardless of that, this is a defense that's physical. It's a hungry defense. They're going to keep games tight, and they've been great at adjustments and playing well in the second half of football games this season. So we'll see if that continues to happen this week, depending on what happens at the quarterback's position. But you look beyond that, you've still got athletes on that offensive side. They're just trying to find their way in the passing game. Cade George, been a big guy. Ethan Hammett can make some plays. C.J. Branson's been good at the running back position, as well as Trey Vassell. So they've got the talent there. Depending on what happens at the quarterback position, if they have a full week to prepare, I still think this is a very, very tight game. You look at what Hewitt-Trussville's done lately. It's a team that struggled the last couple of weeks. They beat Vestavia Hills 2 weeks ago by 14 points, but they trailed by 7 with about 4 minutes to go. A wild finish in that one as they come back to win that one by 14. But Vestavia, a team that's only won 2 games this year, almost beat them in that one. And then you look last week, they only beat Gadsden City by 7 points, a team Oak Mountain beat by 10 points. So on paper, these two teams should still be very close from a talent standpoint and from the way they've played this year, both dealing with their own things injury-wise. If Oak Mountain is fresh, able to bounce back from this physical test against Thompson, I think they still compete and have a great chance to pull off a big program win here against Hewitt-Trussville this Friday in a huge region matchup. Well, how about those Calera Eagles? Head coach Jason Hamlin comes in first year, a team that had won just 1 game each of the last 3 seasons. Last year got a couple of forfeit wins, but head-to-head wise, they've only won 1 game each of the last 3 seasons since joining the 6A classification. Well, guess what? Not only have they won 5 games this year to improve to 5-3, but beyond that, this football team headed to the playoffs, and not just going to the playoffs, they've got a chance to pick up they've clinched the 3 seed going into the postseason. So just remarkable stuff with what they've been able to do. Last week, a 34-29 win on their home field. Another wild finish. They've been in some great football games this year. They're going to be battle-tested going into the postseason, but they beat Wetumpka 34-29 in a comeback victory there, and they clinched that playoff spot. You get the Gatorade bath there for Coach Hamlin. These players bought in to what he was preaching coming in, and it's just been remarkable to see. The offensive talent there has been tremendous, and guess what? The last 2 weeks, they hadn't even played their best offensive football. Almost upset Helena 2 weeks ago, struggling on the offensive side, and last week had a pretty balanced attack, but nobody really just went off in that game, yet they still were able to make some big plays and pick up the win 34-29 against Wetumpka. Now they get a chance to finish off region play against Benjamin Russell and pick up their 6th win of the season. Should have a great opportunity. And you look at this Calera team, they were a combined 14 points this year from winning the region championship. They lost by Pelham to 4 points in a crazy football game. Great chance to win that one. And then obviously led Helena late in the fourth quarter, 21-17. End up giving up 2 late touchdowns and lose that one 31-21. But they were so close to beating both of those teams who are the top 2 teams in the region. Calera right on the verge of winning a region title this year, which says a lot about where this program's come in a hurry and where they can go in the future. Arguably one of the areas loaded with future talent, some young stars there, a city that's still growing there big time. It's one of the fastest growing in the state. Calera's got a bright future ahead, but they got to focus on the rest of this year first. Obviously, it starts with Benjamin Russell this Friday night. You look at Benjamin Russell, they're scoring just 18.4 points per game. Calera, They're scoring about 10 more points per game on the offensive side at 27.6. And then you look at the defensive side, Calera really starting to improve there. That's what I've been most impressed with within the last few weeks, giving up 22.3 points per game right now, but Benjamin Russell giving up 27. So when you look at that, Calera's offense playing about 10 points per game better, I think makes a big difference. I think you're going to see these guys in Preston Stokes, Kobe Prentice, Braylon Farrington, Daniel Carmona, Chris Cotton, all those guys come out hungry to gain some more confidence here late in the season as we near the playoffs. I think they want to have a big showing this Friday night. I think they do just that. The defense playing so well the last couple of weeks, I think, makes a difference as well. Going up against a Benjamin Russell offense, scoring just 18 points per game. I don't see Benjamin Russell having enough on the offensive side to be able to keep up in this one. I think you're going to see a Calera team that picks up their 6th victory of the season. Just remarkable stuff. A special storyline there for the Eagles this year. We'll see how they finish the regular season, but a great chance for this team to make a postseason run with the talent we've seen so far. Well, I've got a sneaky feeling about this game. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing for you Chelsea fans, but going into this Mountain Brook game, the number 3 team in the 6A classification, I just have a feeling Chelsea's going to make this a very tight football game. You look at the Spartans, it's their final regular season game of the season, so obviously they want to end on a high note, but they don't need to take any risk or any chances because this is a team that's already locked up the region championship. They're sitting exactly where they want to be sitting at this point in the season, going into the playoffs as the number 1 seed out of the region. Obviously, you want to end the season on a high note, but they don't really need to do anything special this week, so I don't know what we're going to get out of them. For the Chelsea Hornets, though, this is a team that's playing their best football of the season, and we've started to see it on both sides of the football now as they've each kind of stepped up in different games to win football games the last few weeks. A team that started 0-4, and all 4 of those games in the football game. The opener against Oak Mountain, they end up losing in pretty much a blowout at the end of the night, but they went into that game tied 13-13 at the half, just made some careless mistakes there early in the third quarter, and it got out of hand quick. Beyond that, though, the next 3 weeks, right in each of those football games as they lose tight contests to some very good teams, too. Helena, Pelham, and Homewood. 3 very good football teams, obviously, that right now kind of in the top 2 to 3 of their region. Obviously, Pelham and Helena in the top 2 of their region. Homewood battling out this Friday, a game we'll talk about with Briarwood here in a few minutes for the number 2 seed in that region, the same region as Chelsea. But the Hornets this Friday night looking to pull off a huge upset. They clinched a playoff spot. I broke down the tiebreaker information. There is still a chance at a 3-way tie between Shades Valley, Chelsea, and Homewood, depending on how this Friday unfolds. But you break down the head-to-head matchups in non-region play if it goes that far, and you look at that, the Chelsea Hornets would get in. Homewood would have the best non-region record, and then it would go down to the tiebreaker head-to-head matchup between Chelsea and Shades Valley. Chelsea gets that win against Shades Valley last Friday, so they do clinch their playoff spot in that win. There was a little bit of confusion whether that was the case or not, but after doing the math, it looks like they have done that. So they want to continue to gain some confidence in this win. They've won 4 games in a row to get into a good situation. Now looking to close it out. One last big win here against Mountain Brook to finish off region play. So a team sitting at 4-4 after an 0-4 start, and it's been largely because of what we've seen from the offense. They're now scoring 29.3 points per game, defense giving up 28.4 points per game, and that's been a little bit of a question mark, but we've started to see them improve on that side of the football. You look at the defensive side, and in 2 of their last 3 games, they've now given up 7 and 6 points in those wins, and so that's something you want to see. Last week, the offense didn't play its best football by any stretch of the imagination, scored just 17 points, but guess what? That was more than enough. They win 17-6 in a strong defensive effort there. Several guys stepped up on the defensive side of the football. We'll talk a little bit more about them in our SCR Stars of the Week segment, but you look at the way the defense played to win that game 17-6. They're starting to find a rhythm here late in the season, and that's what they're going to need again this week. So Mountain Brook defense that's giving up just 10.3 points per game, and they've given up 7 or less in 6 games and 14 or less in all but their loss to Thompson. And without that loss to Thompson, a game in which they gave up 51 points. This is a defense that's giving up right around about 4.5, 5 points per game on that side of the football. So they've handled everything when it comes to the 6A classification pretty handily on the defensive side. So if you're Chelsea, you want to come out, you want to show that you're going to chase down every ball carrier and make some big plays on the defensive side to keep this a low-scoring physical battle, because you know the Mountain Brook defense is going to come out and play well every night of the season. You got to expect that's going to be the case, that your offense isn't going to score more than 14 to 20 points, so you've got to come out and play well on the defensive side. That said, Mountain Brook scoring about 32.8 points per game, so they're playing well on that side, but we've seen them kind of hit or miss at times this season, coming off a good effort against Homewood last week, so we'll see how they respond. We also got to see how the Chelsea offense will respond from a slow performance last week in that win against Shades Valley. But you look at Hayden Garrison, you look at Thomas Simpson, you look at Cooper Griffin, Jadarian McKinney, MJ Conrad, so many others really have stepped up and emerged throughout the season. For a while, it was just really Simpson and Griffin, but we've seen more guys kind of step up, make big plays. This is an offense that honestly may be one of the more difficult that Mountain Brook has faced this year, obviously aside from the Thompson Warriors. So you look at that, I think the Chelsea, if they come out and have one of their on nights, which they can be hit or miss some nights, but I think they're going to come out obviously motivated, looking to take down one of the best teams in the state. Don't be surprised. Like I said at the top of this segment, I think the Chelsea Hornets can keep this football game very, very close in a tight battle. Defense has got to play well and do so early. You don't want to try to come back in this matchup, so you've got to come out, set the tone early, because if you fall behind by 2 scores early in this game, Mountain Brook, they're not going to relinquish a 2-score lead with the way that their defense plays. So got to come out fast, physical, and strong early in this football game. Don't be surprised if it happens. I think you're going to see a good one here at Chelsea High School between Chelsea and Mountain Brook this Friday. It's another week for the Pelham Panthers to try to get a little bit better as they close out region play and look to gain some confidence going into the playoffs this year. A big matchup against Homewood to end the regular season the week after this, but a big final regular season region game to end region play this Friday against Chilton County. Pelham coming off of a bye week, kind of came at a good time. This is a team that's been a little bit inconsistent, but starting to play some really good football the last couple of weeks. And you look at them, they've clinched the 2 seed in the region, sitting at 4-1 in region play. They're 5-3 overall. They've had a difficult schedule to this point in the season. So now a matchup against a Chilton County team that they're better than. It's quite simply that's the case. So they've got to come out, they got to play like it. And the way that this defense has been playing the last several weeks, they've got a great chance not only in this one to continue to improve and get better, but to make a statement as they move forward against Homewood next week, going into the playoffs. This defense has got to be playing well, and they're starting to play their best football of the season. They've given up 14 in back-to-back games, and they've looked really good on that side of the ball. You've got some explosive athletes over there. They're starting to play better on the defensive line. They've given up 21 or less in 5 of their 8 games and 13 or less in 4 of their 8 games so far this season, now giving up 20.8 points per game on the defensive side of the football. And you're taking on a Chilton County team struggling to score points. They've scored 14 or less in their last 2 games and 5 times total this season, scoring right about 17 points per game on the offensive side. So with the Pelham defense starting to play its best football of the season, Chilton County starting to struggle a little bit on the offensive side, struggled really throughout the season. They've shown some flashes of success, and they could have an on night this Friday, so Pelham's got to be ready to go. But with the way their defense is playing at Pelham, with the Chilton County struggles on the offensive side, you look at this Pelham offense, they're going to capitalize. They're going to score some points. Will Langford, Gabe Gamble, so many others stepping up on that offensive side of the football. Darius Copeland, you need some guys to step up at the receiver position downfield to help make some big plays. But Will Langford, he can extend plays. It's a matter of can he find those receivers downfield as the season goes along here as we inch closer to the playoffs. So I think you're going to see the offense come out, try to make a statement. This is a Chilton County defense playing pretty solid this year, giving up about 24.1 points per game. But at the end of the night, I think that differential between Chilton County's offense, the Pelham Pelham defense playing so well. That makes the big difference. It's going to give that Pelham offense some confidence to go out and play freely as well, try to have one of their better nights of the season. I like the Pelham Panthers to pick up a big win, win this one kind of going away there in the second half, gain some more confidence. They're looking forward to that game next week, too. They got to focus on this one first, but gain some confidence going into that rivalry with Homewood to end the regular season. Should be a good night for the Pelham Panthers. For the second year in a row, it'll be the Briarwood Lions and the Homewood Patriots battling it out on the final night of region play for the 2 seed in this region. That gives you home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs, a little bit easier of a matchup, a better chance to make a slight run in the playoffs. So you want this win. You want to gain that home field advantage in the first round of the postseason, have a little bit of an easier matchup. And you look so far at what these two teams have done. Obviously, last year, Briarwood won in the same exact situation. Now they'll be looking to do so 2 years in a row. This time, they get the game on their home field. But Briarwood sitting at 7-1 overall, 4-1 in region play. You've got Homewood sitting at 5-3 overall, 3-2 in region play. But the Patriots, they've lost 2 in a row, and they've scored 14 or less in those 2 games. Obviously, last week was against Mountain Brook, so you can't really hold that against them. One of the best defenses in the state this year, but they gave up way too many points in that game. 40-plus points they gave up to the Spartans in that one. Briarwood lost just a tight 14-0 game. They just lost the field position battle early in that matchup with the Spartans, and that's what cost them in that one. So we'll see what the Briarwood defense is able to come out and do. A defense is giving up just 17.3 points per game. I expect them to have a good night. Know that we've seen some struggles from Homewood's offense recently, so how can the Briarwood defense exploit that? They'll be looking at that on tape, figuring out ways to make big plays throughout this week of practice going into this matchup because they know what's at stake. They know that they want to get home field advantage, play on their home field there at Briarwood in the first round of the playoffs. And you look at this offense, the Briarwood offense, that's going to be the big question mark moving forward. Luke Rebels, he's been battling injuries all year as one of the best athletes on the offensive side. He can play running back. He can catch the ball downfield as a receiver as well. They're also down Jay Butler, who was out with a season-ending injury a couple weeks ago early in that game against Mountain Brook as well. So now you've got an offense that, if Rebels is back, they're going to have plenty of success. They've also got Ethan Anderson at receiver and Christopher Vizina. That's the key. He's got so much talent, so much ability, but you've got to be able to capitalize on that. You've got to have the guys that can make plays around him. He's got a solid offensive line. He can run the football, but if you don't have anybody downfield catching the football, you load up that box and you get after him in the backfield. You leave little room for him to run. That you're not as worried about the downfield passing. So it may not be costly this week, but they're going to have to at least this week show that they can continue to make plays down the field. Ethan Anderson going to have to step up in a big way. Luke Rebels, we hope, is back and healthy. That can make a huge difference as well. But going into the playoffs, you're going to have that downfield threat. So we'll see how that happens, if that emerges this week against Homewood. But at the end of the night, this Briarwood team still scoring 34.5 points per game, giving up 17.3 points per game. Homewood, they're scoring 7 less per game at 27 and giving up about 10 less per game, or 10 more per game, at 26. So Briarwood, the better team going into this matchup. They've got to play like it on the football field. We'll see what they're able to do if some things emerge for them on that offensive side. But I expect Briarwood for the second year in a row to win this big matchup, gain home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. It's taken a little bit of research, but I think we figured out that Shelby County, they can still get in the playoffs with a loss this Friday night to Jemison. That said, it's going to come down to some tiebreaker situations, non-region games. So the best thing you can do, go out and win a football game against a winless football team. And if you win this game, you not only get into the playoffs for the second year in a row, a team that hadn't made it to the postseason since 2009 going into last year. They get in last year as the 4 seed. This year, a chance, if they win this football game, to get the 2 seed. And that would just be remarkable under first-year head coach and graduate of Shelby County High School, Zeb Ellison. And you look at this game going into the matchup, Shelby County should be the heavy favorite to win this football game. But you look at the situation. If Selma loses to region leader Demopolis, undefeated Demopolis in region play, If Selma loses that game, they finish 4-2 in region play. If Shelby County can win this Friday night, they finish 4-2 in region play. Well, guess what? Shelby County's got the tiebreaker in that situation. They beat Selma head-to-head 11-8 in a very tight and good defensive football game. So Shelby County would get the 2 seed. They would get home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. So got to win this game on Friday night. You win, you're in no matter what. You don't have to worry about tiebreakers, and you get a great chance at the 2 seed. At the worst, you're sitting there as the 3 seed in the region. So a big, big opportunity for the Wildcats, and you got to take advantage. This is a Jemison team that's 0-8 overall this season, 0-5 in region play. They're struggling on both sides of the ball. Shelby County is the better football team. They've got to buckle up the chin straps and come out and play like the better football team. They've got to have that week of practice this week to show it. If they can do that, they're going to come out, they're going to take care of business on Friday night on their home field to end region play. They're going to likely get the 2 seed because I think that Demopolis will be the better team against Selma. It's going to be a tight, low-scoring battle there, so Selma will have a chance, but Shelby County's got to take care of business in this one. You look at Jemison, like I said, 0-8. Shelby County sitting at 3-4 overall, 3-2 in region play, whereas Jemison's 0-8 and 0-5 in region play. Shelby County, now they are struggling on the offensive side of the football. They're scoring just 16 points per game, but guess what? That's still 6 more points per game than what we've seen from Jemison, and you're taking on a Jemison defense that's giving up 41 points per game. It's the worst defense that Shelby County will go up against this season. Offense has got to come out and have their best night. Even though you've struggled at times this season, you've got to come out and capitalize, find things to exploit, which starts on film this week, getting ready throughout practice and running through your system and making some big plays on the offensive side. But Shelby County defensively playing some great football this year, continuing to show improvements from what we saw a few years ago where they really struggled. That was what was keeping them from getting in the playoffs for so many years. Now this defense starting to play well these last 2 years. They needed about a 10 to 15-point improvement. Last year they got it. This year, same situation. They're giving up 25 points per game. And playing some great football on that side. And guess what? It's 16 points less per game than what Jemison's giving up. So you look at the differential on both sides of the football. Jemison, they've given up 32 or more in every game and 40 or more in all but 2 games so far this season. So you look at that. Shelby County's offense, they've scored 24 or less in all but the 35-22 win against Sipsey Valley, but expect them to get into the 30s this week and expect Jemison, a team that's only scored 10 points per game, to struggle to score on the offensive side. I like Shelby County, my prediction at the end of the night, to be the 2 seed going into the playoffs. The common theme of this show, it's another big one. Another big one for the Montevallo Bulldogs this Friday. They continued to play well last week, now looking to cement themselves into the playoffs this week against Dallas County. Since losing to American Christian and Bibb County in back-to-back weeks earlier this season for a 2-2 start, Montevallo playing some great football with 4 wins in a row since then. You look at the way that the Bulldogs are doing it, starting to play good on the defensive side of the football. They've scored 37 or more in their last 4 games on the offensive side as well, but the defense, they've given up 8 or less in 3 of their last 4 games. So you see that, you know the defense has made improvements. They were playing well against Bibb County and against American Christian, the 2 toughest offenses that they face each and every year. Played well in that game. They played well early in the season as well in their first 2 wins. So now you've started to see them progress in their last 4 games, giving up 8 or less in 3 of those 4. Playing well on the defensive side, now giving up just 20.3 points per game, and the offense scoring 35.3 points per game. Like I said, they've scored 37 or more in their last 4 football games. Joseph Anderson continues to be on a tear. He went for more than 100 last week, continues to play well at the running back position, and we've seen Kyle Cottingham get better at the quarterback position, both from a throwing standpoint and a running standpoint. He can also step out and make some plays at receiver, do some big things. They can change things up so much on the offensive side of the football, and even if they're having an off night right now, defense playing well enough to make up for that. It's a Dallas County team scoring 23.9 points per game, giving up 31.8 points per game. Montevallo, in a similar situation, needed to win to get into the playoffs and get the 3 seed. They won that one 27-20 a year ago. Same exact situation this year. I'm not sure how the tiebreaker situation would play out at the end of the year, but if they win this game, they not only get into the playoffs, they get the 3 seed out of the region as well. So a slightly easier matchup, and we saw what happened last year when they did that. They won their first round playoff matchup, so a great chance again this year to gain some momentum. I think a better football team overall this season, still looking for some consistency out of the passing game, but as that continues to improve, you see Joseph Anderson, if this offense becomes even more balanced, the defense plays as well as it has, they should be able to make another deep run these last few weeks, try to at least get to the second round, if not further. But that starts this Friday. Got to pick up a win. A Dallas County team that's not a bad football team, sit at 3-5 overall, 3-3 in region play though. So really need to have a good performance in this one. But you look at Dallas County giving up 31.8 points per game. This Montevallo offense playing too well right now. They've scored 37 or more in 4 straight. I expect them to get near that number again this week. Well, Vincent by far has the most confusing path to the playoffs this year. A win on Friday night, they could finish in a 3-way tie for one of the final couple spots in the region. A loss on Friday night, and they could finish in a 3-way tie for one of those final couple spots in the region. So a big night, regardless if they win or lose. Still a chance to get into the playoffs, but got to take care of business, pick up a win against Lafayette. If you can pick up a win in this game, at the worst, you create all 3, Ramburn, Lafayette, and Vincent sitting at 4-3 as they look to break out the tie there. But you look at that, Lafayette would have the loss to Vincent, but they beat Ramburn. Vincent would have the win against Lafayette, but they lost to Ramburn by 1 point earlier in the season. So it'd likely come down to non-region play. The best hope is that you win this Friday. Ramburn either takes a loss or wins. That would kind of settle itself. If Ramburn loses on Friday night and Vincent wins, that's a situation where the Yellow Jackets get in to the postseason. But it's going to be wild to figure out. So we'll see where this game sits at the end of the night. The best situation for Vincent, they got to go out, they got to take care of business, and they've got to win this football game against Lafayette. And it's going to be a tough matchup. These are two teams kind of similar on paper, but Lafayette's starting to play its best football of the season the last several weeks. And you look at them, they're sitting at 5-3 overall, winners of 3 in a row now, whereas Vincent also sitting at 5-3, but they have lost 2 of their last 3, and they've only scored 8 or less in those 2 losses. Obviously, 2 tough opponents. They lost to Lynette a couple weeks ago, lose to BB Comer last week, the 2 top teams in this region. So now they've got to bounce back. They've got to find a rhythm. You look at the in-between there, though. They beat Randolph County 51-6, and that's a team Lafayette beat 34-12. So if that says anything, I don't know that it does, but it shows that Vincent should at least be able to compete, in my opinion, with this football team and make it a close game. And they're very similar teams to this point. They've played every other region opponent to this point in the season, and their stats are very, very similar. Vincent scoring 30.8 points per game. Lafayette scoring 31.6 points per game, so about a 1-point differential there. And then Vincent, they're giving up 25.5 points per game. Lafayette giving up about 24.5 points per game. So they're separated by about 1 point on each side of the ball, with Lafayette having a slight 1-point advantage on both sides. Whether that makes a difference, I'm not sure. This should be a very tight football game. Vincent gets it on their home field. They've got to come out. They've got to play with some anger, with some determination, some motivation. They've got to be ready to go. They've got to be chasing down everything. They've got to be fast on the offensive side, fast on the defensive side. They've got to give it their all and lay it on the line this Friday night, because a playoff spot is likely on the line, and you've got to play like it. This is a Vincent program that's taken a turn. They've got that confidence now. They're starting to build for the future, and you got to play like that this Friday night. There shouldn't be any nerves. There shouldn't be any of that. It should be, let's go out there, play the game we love. Let's get after it and try to win a huge football game in front of our home crowd. Let's have some fun in the process. So a big game that I think is going to be very tight, but we've seen Vincent play so much better on the defensive side of the football this season. It's been a great turnaround. I expect that to be a contributing factor. And then the offense, they can make some big plays. Jamari Lawson needs to come out and just be a beast in this game. He's played so well throughout the season. If he's healthy and ready to go, expect this offense to find a rhythm and roll in this matchup. But you look at this game, it's just going to come down to effort. Whichever team has the better effort and makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win this one. You don't have one that's overloaded with talent that's a million times better than the other opponent like you do in some high school football games. They're going to be evenly matched, so it's going to come down to execution and effort in this matchup. It's going to be a lot of fun with a lot on the line there at Vincent High School. Well, that takes us to our AISA and ACSC games this week. We've got 2 to touch on. Then we get to our SCR Stars of the Week segment. We're going to start in the AISA. The Cornerstone Chargers back in action off a bye week, and they get the region leader, Lowndes Academy. Lowndes coming off a 47-0 shutout victory against Coosa Valley, same team that Cornerstone lost to rather heavily a couple weeks ago. So we'll see if the Chargers are able to find a rhythm. But you look at the way that Lowndes is playing right now, scoring 31.5 points per game, giving up 16 points per game. Cornerstone, they're scoring 16, giving up 33. So those numbers don't balance out. Expect Lowndes to pick up a win. Cornerstone needs to get some confidence here late in the season. We'll see what kind of effort they come out with. But right now you got to expect Lowndes to be the favorite in that matchup. The Evangel Lightning, they hit the road this week to East Central. A big game, East Central homeschool. It's a big game for the Lightning as they look to earn a spot in the ACSC championship, state championship, and get revenge against Ezekiel after that loss a few weeks ago. And Evangel bounced back in a big way from that loss. Had a bye week the week after, came back last week, put together a huge showing against the Tennessee Heat, 62-7. You've got an East Central team sitting at 3-5 with 2 losses in a row. Expect Evangel to come out, capitalize, know what's on the line. I expect them to pick up a big win and earn their chance at redemption in the ACSC state championship game. Well, that takes us to our SCR Stars of the Week segment, and not as long of a list this week just simply because we did have a lot of teams on bye last Friday, but still some big performances to talk about, and you got to start with Connor Harrell and Ryan Pepins and what they were able to do on the offensive side against a good Oak Mountain defense. You look at Harrell, had one of his best games of the season, didn't have to throw a ton to get to it either. 9 of 15, 324 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Also added 41 yards on 4 carries there on the offensive side of the football. So close to 400 all-purpose yards in that football game, but just a monster night throwing the football game. He was putting the ball on the money. Didn't have to throw much in the second half either. Came out and hit Pepins early in the second half in the third quarter for their last touchdown of the night, ran the ball from there on out. So big showing from him. He's playing his best football now going into a huge game this Friday, and so is Ryan Pepin. Stepped up, had a 220-yard receiving performance, 5 catches, 5 touchdowns, 222 yards. Just remarkable to see what he was able to do. His route running was on point. It was unbelievable, and it led to some great plays after the catch as well, as nobody could catch him with that speed. So a very good performance from Pepins. We'll see if that duo is connecting. If not, guess what? There's several others ready to step up this Friday night, just like Justin Pegues, a guy, even in that performance that was dominated by Harrell and Pepins. Well, guess what? Pegues still had 3 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown. He actually scored the first touchdown in the game on a beautiful pass from Harrell there. So both those guys playing well at receiver, Harrell playing well at quarterback. You've got Brandon Franklin, you've got Jalen Ward, you've got so many others that can play well on the offensive side. And guess what? The defense lights out. They came out hungry. They came out to make a statement, and they made that statement. Now they're going to look to do the same again this Friday. But last week, Jeremiah Alexander and Peter Woods each had about 5 tackles. Each had 2.5 tackles for loss. Alexander also added a sack. They were all over the backfield and pressuring Oak Mountain in that football game. Tony Mitchell had an interception. Defense played well in the secondary as well. Posted their 5th shutout of the season, and they allowed just 116 yards on the defensive side. So that Thompson defense as a whole gets an SCR star this week as well, as does the Chelsea defense. They played incredible, 17-6 win, postseason hopes on the line, and they get it done. They clinch a spot in the playoffs. The defense forced two turnovers. They had 5 sacks. Cody Fortenberry was great, tipped the ball, intercepted it, and took it back. A great showing for Fortenberry, while James Neal also had an interception. Just great all-around play from the Chelsea defense when they needed them the most this season. the theme continues. Another strong defensive player, Michael Banks Mason from Calera, 9 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, a fumble recovery, and an interception. Just an unbelievable night for him as he made huge plays in a 5-point game that Calera is able to win to clinch a playoff spot there against Wetumpka. So great showing from him on the defensive side. Braylon Farrington on the offensive side also had a good night for the Eagles. He had an 86-yard kick return for a touchdown, also had 3 catches for 28 yards and a touchdown on the offensive side. I'm telling you, there's a lot of talk about Kobe Prentice, but these young receivers behind him as well, a lot of potential. Farrington, still a sophomore, has lightning speed. He may end up being one of the faster players in the state here over the next couple of years. So a strong showing from this offense. I bet they put some good performances together moving forward with all the talented players that they have. For the Helena Huskies, they finish off region play undefeated. Haven't talked about them yet in this week's show, but the Huskies, they pick up the win last week. They finished region play 6-0. Now 9-0 overall in the season, have one more game next week against UMS Wright to close out the regular season. Obviously won the region championship a couple weeks ago, but Jordan Washington continues to play well. He came into that game last Friday night with more than 200 yards rushing the last 4 games in a row, more than 1,000 yards combined in those 4 games, in that 4-game stretch. Well, he had 21 carries, 105 yards, and a touchdown this past Friday night as the Huskies finish region play undefeated. Still another game with him going over 100 yards. Joseph Roberto continues to play well on the defensive side. He had 8.5 tackles, 1.5 for loss, and 1 sack there for the Huskies on the defensive side of the football. And for the Montevallo Bulldogs, you had Joseph Anderson, 11 carries, 168 yards, a couple of touchdowns there for the Bulldogs in their win last week. You also had Cole Dennis and Jamion Prentice play well on the defensive side. Dennis had 2 tackles, he had 2 sacks, and he had a 52-yard scoop and score on one of those sacks for a touchdown, and Prentice added 9 tackles on the defensive side as well. So a lot of defense talk. Man, I like that. That's this time of year, you're getting close to the playoffs. You got these physical defenses stepping up. As much as football has shifted to such an offensive sport, to hear that, that's impressive to see. Expect that to continue to kind of be a trend as we get into these bigger games, these defenses making huge plays to pick up some big wins here down the stretch. We've got some big ones this Friday night, including this one between the Thompson Warriors and Hoover Buccaneers, so I expect you're going to see some more big-time plays and playmakers named next week on next week's SCR Stars of the Week. That's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School football show. We're out here at Thompson shooting the show, but don't forget the game this week, the game of the week, the number 1 Warriors traveling to the Hoover Met to take on the number 2 Hoover Buccaneers. So a road test for the Warriors to close out region play and the regular season, the region championship on the line. We've talked about it extensively already on this show. Well, guess what? We're going to be there live on Friday night, the pregame show. I know I've had some service issues there at the Met in the past, but hopefully no problems there as we get you the live pregame show to get you ready for a huge night of high school football across the county as a whole. But in addition to that, obviously, that game of the year between the Warriors and the Buccaneers. Can't wait to see that battle. Can't wait to see how everybody plays this Friday night. It's one of the weeks I've been looking forward to most since the season started, which is sad because it's at the end of the year and you don't want the year to go by in too much of a hurry. But now we're in my favorite part of the year. The weather's getting cooler. We're getting near the playoffs, just a couple weeks away from that, and a huge final week of region play. We'll see how it unfolds. I'll see you all on Friday night, but for now, that's going to do it from here at Thompson High School.